Hey guys, before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that I have a brand new channel displaying miscellaneous behavior. Link in the description below, and on there I talk about anything that is not action figure related. So pro wrestling, movies, comic books, video games. If you want to see some more programs and features exactly like you see on here, but on a different subject, then go check out the link in the description below and subscribe to Displaying Miscellaneous Behavior. In the meantime though, let's start the show.
I've seen that guy somewhere. On TV.
Hello Marvel Legends, and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behavior. So, take off your pants, crack a beer, and get ready for the world's dumbest video podcast. I'm going to do some fun wish list making today. I was thinking about the Spider-Man retro wave. We've already had one kind of batch come out, and they looked beautiful. Based on the old cartoon designs. So good. Well, the boxes were, and then the rest of the designs were kind of a mixture of a little bit of a cartoon kind of theme with the retro paintwork and whatnot. It was just gorgeous, and we want more, and hopefully we're going to get more. So I've got my wish list, but this is based on figures that A, we haven't had Marvel Legends of, and B, we have seen before in the glorious 90s, when it was just the wild west of Marvel action figures, and you were putting out all sorts of crazy monster versions and accessories and all kinds of nonsense. So much good stuff and things I want to see again and updated. So these are the top 15 figures that I want to see redone from the 90s. There's going to be a catchier title for this video. Also guys, during this countdown, I'm going to use some footage from YouTube that I found of people reviewing and using these figures. So I'm going to put links of those accounts where I found that footage because, hey, credit where it's due. There are some people who have done some real old school toy reviews and they're really awesome. So go check them out. Coming in at number 15, we have the Clone Saga Box Set. Okay, this is kind of a cheat and this is just for me, but anyone who watches like half of one of my videos will know that I am obsessed with the Spider-Man Clone Saga. I love it. It's when I started reading comics. So all of these characters I would desperately love to have modern versions of, in particular 90s Kane, Spider-Side, and 90s Jackal. Oh my God. Those are the figures that have been given such short shrift in Marvel Legends, and I kind of see why. I appreciate 90s Kane, Spider-Side as well. Very, very niche figures, and especially from a time in Marvel's history that they don't really like to harken back to too much, although it's become more popular to do so now. If we could get this box set, that would be amazing, although we don't really need a new Hydro Man, and we've got the street clothes Peter Parker, but my goodness, if we got a 90s Jackal, a big chunky Spider-Side, and a 90s Kane, that would make me so happy. I've got a 90s Kane custom which looks BEA beautiful, but it'd be nice to see what Hasbro would actually do with that idea. And then for Spider-Side, this is a heartbreaker because I commissioned a Spider-Side custom to be made by a buddy of mine, amazing custom maker. He made it, he finished it out of a Caliban bath. It looked stunning, and then got lost in the post, somewhere between the Czech Republic and here. Posted 4 months ago, and that was the last either one of us ever saw of it. Well, what are you gonna do? Beg Hasbro to make one, that's what. So my first entry is a remake of the Clone Saga box set. Next up now, we have the Vulture. Of course, we've already had the Adrian Toomes Vulture, looking bald and liver spotted and really fantastic, I think. I love that version, but I want now the young, youthful Vulture from the Life Theft storyline. I had to pronounce that very carefully and slowly to get it right. And also, he featured in the cartoon with this life-stealing gimmick, so it would make sense to have him in this retro carded wave. And I love the redesign because it's a great update of the Vulture costume. They kept the general aesthetic, which is just green, I guess. There wasn't too much you could sort of mess around with. So it was green, but it was more armored, it was more sleek, it looked more like battle armor, which was really cool. And then of course he had the younger, more youthful head. So I think having that would just look like so much fun. And we've had it before, so I say, let's have it again. Okay, only 3 entries in and we're veering away from Spider-Man a little bit, but bear with me because this figure was released as part of a Spider-Man wave, and that is the Wasp. Yes, the weird insect Wasp. This was a character redesign that came out in the mid-90s. God bless the mid-90s, during the Avengers Crossing storyline, where the Wasp was killed off and then she went into a cocoon and she came out with actual Wasp features. And I dug this redesign. I appreciate why it didn't stick around for long. People like the classic retro Wasp. I get it. In the long run, I agree. But for my 90s shelf and my 90s Avengers to go alongside War Machine or 90s Black Widow, put her in that Onslaught kind of section, oh, the actual insect Wasp, I would totally dig this. This next one is a big one for me, and I can't believe we haven't seen it by now. Swarm. What a cool character. He's been done before, but we need to get him done again, because an evil Nazi scientist skeleton made of bees? How cool is that? I love it.
I'm covered in bees! Help! I'm covered in bees!
And it is such a bonkers character with a crazy origin. Nazi scientist gets stung by a mutated swarm of bees and becomes like, well, they devour him down to the skeleton.
Ah! Ah! I'm covered in bees! Ah! Covered in bees!
But then he forms a psychic link with them and he becomes the evil Swarm. And it's such a cool, bright looking design. A giant bee man with a purple cape. It just lends itself. It says, make an action figure of me. And they did. And it looked really cool. And there have been people who have done customs as well. And the customs look awesome because most people incorporate the skeleton into it. So you see like bits of skeleton with the bees swarming around it. So much awesome toyetic possibilities there. I want to see a Swarm custom. Or, what am I saying? We've seen some awesome Swarm customs. Give us, Hasbro, please, an awesome Swarm figure. Sticking with an animal-y kind of theme, or insecty or arachnid, as Spider-Man characters tend to do, we have La Tarantula, which again is amazing that they haven't done yet, because it's not too demanding of a figure to produce, I wouldn't have thought, but I guess Hasbro are like, we'll get to it eventually. It's one of those back burner figures, but he's a character who has been around in various forms with various people having that disguise for a long, long time. I think we've had about 3 tarantulas in the Marvel comics. He was originally introduced to kind of beat up Spider-Man, basically. The writer at the time felt like Spidey needs to be brought down a little bit in power level, so he made a regular human being martial artist to beat him in a fight to kind of like show like Spidey's not that big of a heavy hitter. And then later writers decided that actually, no, we want Spidey to be more badass, so they had him beat him. But I digress. Either way, the character of the tarantula is, kind of generic. He's a martial arts assassin type guy. But the look is fun. The bright red costume with the spider emblem on there, the kind of Mexican bullfighter kind of look to him with the foot blades as well. It's a little bit wacky. And hey, he just happened to show up in the original Clone Saga. Ha! That's an easy yes. Book it, Hasbro. Now, a figure that I've got a kind of a love-hate relationship with is Madam Web. But we did have a Madam Web figure, and she came with her chair and everything. Why do I not like her? Because she's mystical and psychic and magical, and I don't like those things in my Spider-Man. I want science-based characters in Spider-Man, not mystical magic. But anyway, she featured prominently in the cartoon, and apparently that was a big difficulty for the writers to get permission to use her, because naturally the toy companies were like, kids aren't going to want to play with a toy of an old lady sat in a chair, which is a fair argument. But for better or for worse, they included her and we got a figure. And now, even though I'm not a big fan of hers, she features so prominently in Spider-Man stories, although she's been killed off now, but she originally did. So I think Madam Web deserves her representation. This next one now is one that a lot of people have been asking for. And that's not even me just generalizing everything. People have genuinely been asking for this guy, and that is the Spot. Because he's such a classic D-list villain, been around for decades and been involved in pretty much anyone who battles street-level crime. It's amazing that we haven't had a new version of the Spot, but Hasbro could do him so easily. Just a Bucky cap mold with white paint and black spots. That's it. No armor, no guns, no accessories, zip. So come on, Hasbro, make it happen. And also, he's been used a lot in comics recently, and they've kind of changed around, not changed around, but given new avenues for his powers and stuff. Now it's like he's being used as a gateway to like a dark dimension kind of thing. It's really clever. So come on, Hasbro. Finally, put us out of our misery. Give us a Spot. This next figure now, I don't even necessarily need a new version of. I would love the 90s one, and that is Stegron. This figure originally was fantastic. You take a look at this guy. First of all, a giant dinosaur man. That's an easy win. I mean, come on, who doesn't want that on their shelves? And the original one came with this kind of contraption, these shackles, like he was imprisoned at the vault. I think that was the toy line actually, like the vault, and they were all imprisoned enemies of Spider-Man. Stegron, a shield scientist who goes to the Savage Land, gets dinosaur DNA, turns himself into a dinosaur monster that can psychically control other animals, and like such a fun, silly, bonkers, ridiculous character. But how toyetic do you want? Not only did they make a giant dinosaur man, but they gave him awesome shackles and a metallic armor mask as well. It looked so cool. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, those restraints could go on the lizard and look really wicked on there too. So I think I might have to go onto eBay and buy that original one because he looks so cool. But in the meantime, Hasbro, get on it. Give us a Stegron. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking now. You're saying, Dave, where are all the symbiotes? Well, don't worry. I got your back. In fact, I kind of heavily weighted this list without meaning to. So, SheVenom. Yes, Anne Weying, the ex-wife of Eddie Brock. This is a character that I really want to see done again. The original one was kind of fun, not very poseable, but they did what Hasbro haven't really done with Venom yet, which is do a face that has the symbiote actually sliming its way over the face, halfway done. That is such a cool look. And it's amazing that Hasbro haven't done that. The best we've got is the Eddie Brock head with the tendrils kind of coming up a little bit. But I want the full Venom face forming. And if it's forming around the Anne Weying figure, that's even cooler. And Anne Weying's got an interesting backstory. You know, she was Eddie Brock's wife, they got divorced, and it was really sad that bonding to the symbiote kind of traumatized her to the point that eventually afterwards she saw Spider-Man swing by in the black suit and it freaked her out and she killed herself. And then that gave Venom another reason to hate Spider-Man. It was a little bit of a fridging kind of situation, but still, it was interesting, and she's an interesting character. Plus, we also had this in the Venom movie with Tom Hardy. We got SheVenom, we got Anne Weying doing exactly that. So if we can get a Marvel legend of that character, that would be really cool. Plus, she also appeared recently in an alternate timeline in the Venom comics. So another reason to give us Anne Weying SheVenom. We're all getting very excited about the new Iron Man wave coming out, and rightly so. And one of those figures apparently is a guardsman from the vault. So we know what that guy kind of looks like with the green armor, but I want them to go one step further. I want the jury. Because it's not like we already have 10,000 unfinished teams that we're waiting for Hasbro to do. Let's give us another one. The jury were a bunch of former Vault guardsmen who kind of personalized and modified their guardsman equipment and became kind of a vigilante justice sort of force, but with a more trial, jury, court kind of motif. They were bankrolled by this guy who he had problems, or his life had been destroyed by supervillains or the superhuman community. So they kind of put folks on trial. And there was a really cool story where they kind of recruited Spider-Man and they said, look, Spider-Man, because of your allowing Venom to run free, he's destroyed all these people's lives. You have to help us bring him in and put him on trial. And Spidey was like, you seem like a nice, regular, sensible bunch of people. Yeah, sure, I'll work with you. And of course, he then realizes, oh no, wait, they're going to kill him. Shock horror. So the jury are fun kind of anti-hero type characters, and they have really diverse designs. So back in the 90s, we got a guardsman, but I want to see full jury. Back to the symbiotes now, and maybe it's just a matter of time, or maybe they've forgotten about him entirely, but Hybrid. Yes, the Life Foundation symbiotes. We've almost got all the Life Foundation symbiotes, but there was a phase after their initial 90s debut where they all bonded together for the first time, and they wrapped around a guy. I think he was a policeman, or the Pat Mulligan was a policeman, and he was Toxin. Either way, they bonded with a guy, it's my comic book knowledge there, and became Hybrid. And Hybrid had a cool design. He was brown for a start, and brown is not sort of a natural sort of superhero color. I can think of Juggernaut is brown, but that's all that springs to mind. But he was a brown symbiote, and he had like red bug kind of eyes and lots of tendrils coming off of his back. He looked really cool. It was a fun design. Eventually the character was killed by Eddie Brock when he was going on his symbiote hunting kind of spree. But he was around for a cup of coffee, and he was a fun design, and again, a staple of the 90s, so obviously I want him on my shelf. Sticking with 90s symbiotes, because why wouldn't I? I would like phage. No. Not the phage that we just got. A character that was actually not named in the comics, but when they made a figure for him, they took the phage name. And that is this freaky looking symbiote eating alien that came from a Venom miniseries. In the 90s, Venom didn't have an ongoing series. He just had one miniseries after another that all got progressively worse, to be honest. But there was a fun little one in which this bizarre, weird creature that was just a mesh of bones and hair and tentacles and all sorts of stuff came to Earth to hunt a symbiote. And it was a bizarre design, and they made it into an action figure. And it looks really cool. I went onto eBay to see if there were any. There's one in the UK, but he's a little bit worse for wear. He's missing a couple of tendrils and his fur's falling off. I was like, I won't roll the dice on that. I'll just wait for Hasbro to make me a new one, and I hope they do because he looks really cool. The last symbiote I'm going to mention is, of course, an obvious one, which is Riot. I was thinking of the purple female one, but I'm not sure if we had a figure of her before or not. But Riot, I know we did have. And it was a cool figure as well. It was big, chunky, hefty, and that's what Riot needs to be. So I know that we're going to eventually get the rest of the Life Foundation symbiotes. That's kind of a given. But the question is, Hasbro, come on, don't cheap out. Don't give us a Bucky Cap Riot. We need a big, hefty Riot. Riot was always meant to be the beast of that group. So give us the Riot that we deserve. Because the one that came out in the 90s looked great. He was huge and hefty. Again, I'm going to have to go on eBay and see if there's any going cheap. But don't make me do that, Hasbro. Instead, give me a nice, new, glossy, big, carded Riot. That would look so cool. Next up now from the animated toy line, I would like a Spider Slayer. And Alien Spider Slayer, I think they called it, because of course there's all sorts of different versions of Spider Slayers, and a lot of them had toys made and they look kind of cool, but this alien looking one is closest to my heart because this was the first ever Spider-Man trade paperback I bought, was Invasion of the Spider Slayers, and this guy was on the front cover and he just looked so cool. Looked like an HR Giga alien type creature, but made mechanical, and just a really awesome design. And they made him once, and it was a very basic kind of figure. It was a kid's toy, not like Marvel Legends now, where clearly it's made for 40-year-old collectors, who are just enjoying these figures from our childhoods. That this figure was made as a kid's toy for a kid's TV show for kids, so it was very, very basic. I would love to see a new design of this. I don't think we will, because it was just a real one-off, just chuck it out there kind of figure. But just me personally, I think that would be so cool. And finally, sticking with the animated series, I crave 90s Alistair Smythe. Yes, cyborg, pointy shoulder things, Alistair Smythe, looking so badass. We got him in the animated series. I always thought it was strange that in the animated series, when he became that cyborg character, they kind of gave him like spooters on his shoulders. I suppose that they thought like the knives, the blades were too scary looking, so they were like laser firing spooters. It looked very, very odd. But either way, they did make a figure of him, and it was fine, as animated figures were in the day. Again, they were made for kids, not for adult collectors. So a grown-ups Alistair Smythe, I sound so elitist. I want toys for grown-ups, all right? Don't patronize me, Hasbro. So yeah, I think it's a matter of time. It must be a matter of time, because Alistair Smythe has been featured a lot over the last 20 years or so, when the character kind of re-debuted in Spider Slayers back in the early 90s. He has popped up every now and then, and his design has changed a lot over time. Now, I think actually he was killed off by the superior Spider-Man, but hey, come on, everyone gets brought back. He might have been brought back already and I just hadn't realized. But the original 90s design looked really cool, quite iconic, at least for my little era, and I would love to see that. And folks, that is my top 15 figures that have been done before, but I want to see done again. And some of them I'm sure we will see again. There are ones like Riot, who it's just a matter of time. And then there are other ones where it's kind of baffling that we haven't had, like Swarm and Tarantula. Come on, Hasbro, put me out of my misery. Otherwise, I swear I'm going to keep making these videos, and no one wants that. But guys, what figures do you want to see? Comment below, let me know. And before you go anywhere, check out the link in the description below for my new channel that I've made, where I cover movies, games, comic books, wrestling, anything that is not action figure related. Right now, I have a little discussion about the new Terminator anime show coming out, and I have a recap of this week's AEW Dynamite. So lots of fun stuff to enjoy there. But until next time, folks, keep displaying model behavior.